sisters, welcome back to the Talking Sisters channel. Now in this video we're going to be revealing what made us black people wealthy in first century Rome. So what made us black people wealthy in first century Rome? Now that's almost 2,000 years ago.
Absolutely. So you're talking about ancient Rome, and that's in Italy. That's when we were being ruled over, as we are today, by Caucasians.
Now today, sisters, we're constantly hearing about our people's poverty. You know, this is very different from the economic state of many of our people in first century Rome. Take a look at this news clip about today's poverty among our people.
Culinary director of the Franciscan Center of Baltimore, feeding thousands of people each week in Baltimore, Maryland, near the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Many of them unemployed.
Yes, I'm unemployed myself, actually. And when I lost my jobs, I lost everything.
Many here consider Chef Stephen a vital lifeline. He and his staff feeding the hungry at a time when African Americans are twice as likely to be unemployed than white citizens here in the U.S.
Now you'll notice, sisters, that the news reporter mentioned black people and white people. But are those real nationalities? They sound more like colours in a colouring box. Did we really identify ourselves as black and white in ancient times? Who are we really? Let's find out.
You can hear me clearly, Rabbi. Let us have your name once more.
My name is Rabbi Yehuda Ben Shomer.
Okay. Well, is it okay if we just call you Yehuda?
Yeah, that's fine.
Today?
Okay, yeah, that's great. Fine. No problem at all. I'll go on even further to say this, that the slave trade is actually connected to Deuteronomy 28, because the majority of the slaves that were brought to the Caribbean islands and brought to the Americas were Ibu people, were people of Hebrew and Hebraic Israelite descent, if you will. And so if you read Deuteronomy chapter 28, it matches perfectly what happened to the Hebrew slaves, the black Hebrew slaves, during the slave trade. It just matches it perfectly.
So you were saying that there's a great chance, or more so, that the black people that links directly to the slave trade are from the lost tribes of Israel. Is that what you're saying here, sir?
Yes, I am.
A treatise on physical geography, comprising hydrology, geodesy, geology, meteorology, botany, zoology, and anthropology, by A. Barrington. I want you to see that this was published in 1850. Again, get the older books. Remember, we have not been emancipated as of yet, so many of these writers had no fear about putting truths or secrets that they discovered in their books. Let's go over to page 297. Page 297. All right. Hope y'all can see this. Thus the Jews are a people who have ever, according to the prophecy, dwelt alone, without intermixing with the nations to this day. Now this separate race all descend from, see that word? Let me zoom in. Brown ancestors. Let me pull back. Now this separate race all descend from brown ancestors. For Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob must have been as dark as Mar Yohanan, if not darker, meaning dark skin. Exhibit every shade of color from the black Jews of Malabar. So letting you know that the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob exhibit all the shades of color from the black Jews of Malabar. Okay, meaning different shades of brown, from a very dark brown to a very light brown. Okay, let's jump down here. The Spanish Jew is always dark complexion, and his hair is uniformly black. Okay? Then they go into the convert Jews. These German Jews with blue eyes, these are the converts. I didn't even underline that. The various shades of color observable among the Negro or African race tends to the same conclusion. What conclusion? Up here, that the Jews exhibit every shade of color from the black Jews of Malabar. Okay? The various shades of color observable among the Negro or African race tends to the same conclusion. Along the coast of Guinea, which is low, marshy, and hot, we find jet black complexion, and this is the very country from which American Negroes have been derived. You see this? Do y'all see this? Come on, somebody talk to me. Light and Truth, collected from the Bible and ancient and modern history, containing the universal history of the colored and the Indian race. This was published in 1844. 1844. Page 348. The prophet Noah. Noah, the son of Lamech, was a prophet of the antediluvian world. A knowledge of the deluge, was made known to him about 120 years before the flood. He was a just man and a faithful preacher of righteousness. He warned the people of their destruction by a flood. God commanded Noah to build the ark, or great ship, and Ham, a mighty man, helped to build the ark at God's command. The posterity of Noah, who inhabited the earth after the flood, were a colored people, and their language was Hebrew. See the historical books of the ancients. This language was originally given to man by his creator, and afterwards broken into a multitude of tongues at Babel. The Hebrew, it is almost certain, was the language of Adam and Eve, and it is certain their complexion was black.
In Crania Aegyptiaca, published in 1844, Morton pointed out that both cranial and archaeological evidence showed that the Egyptians were not Negroes. In 1840, Dr. Morton was trying to find out the racial origin of the so-called Negroes that were in America in slavery. So he got together with the Egyptologists, which supplied him with the mummy heads, and what he did was conduct an extensive research on the cranial remains of the heads in Egypt, in contrast to the cranial remains of the heads in America. And what he found out is that the Negroes that were in slavery were not Africans. He found out that the skulls were two totally different types of skulls. The Negro's head was longer than the Egyptian head. The physical characteristics from the outside look similar, with the thick lips and the broad nose. But once you start delving into the real characteristics, he found out that there were two totally different people, as abolitionists and colonizationists had maintained, and that in fact, blacks had been relegated to the same servile position in ancient Egypt as in modern America. But what Dr. Morton did discover is that the Negroes that were serving slavery in America served the same position and servitude in ancient Egypt when they matched other skulls and other cranial remains in Egypt. They said these are exact matches. So what are the scholars saying? What you're going to find out is that they're saying that you are the biblical Israelites. Yes, you're the same exact people that served slavery in the land of Egypt. You're the same exact people that God sent Moses to go redeem under the hand of Pharaoh. You're the same exact people.
U.S. Department of State Archive. Foreign Relations, 1969 to 1976, Volume E5. Documents on Africa, 1969-1972. Memorandum, the White House, Washington, Tuesday, January 28, 1969. Memorandum for the President from Henry A. Kissinger. Subject, U.S. options in Biafra relief. You asked for a study of the Biafra relief problem by January 28th. A member of my staff prepared the attached survey. I've taken the liberty of underlining the most significant parts. Underlying is a sketch of the background of the problem with a useful map. I thought it important to trace in some detail in the interplay between politics and food. Each of the following tabs, however, is designed to stand alone for a quick overview. I want to jump down now just for time's sake. Y'all can read this on your own. I'm going to jump down to the 7th paragraph. Biafra, 3,000 square miles, 4 to 6 million. Colonel Ojukwu, 35, British-trained erstwhile playboy, presides over the popular support and military morale of a people convinced that defeat means extinction. The Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa. Let me repeat that. The Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa.
I'm John Avoli. I'm the Executive Director of the Frontier Culture Museum of Virginia. The museum represents a period of history from 1650 to 1850. And the missing link of all of this was that we also understood, as part of the Western frontier, there were enslaved Africans here who made significant contributions to the community here. And the board at the museum asked us to begin a research project to find out who those people were. And we did. We hired Professor Jack Ojukwu and a lot of other consultants. And by that process, we found that about 42% of the enslaved Africans in the Virginia colonies were the Igbo people. So we began our research project in Nigeria and actually located this compound outside of Owerri, which we visited, and we asked the man who owned it that we wanted to bring this to Virginia and put it in the museum, and he said okay.
I just wanted to clarify that I do know that they are not African. Just because the white man got them from the continent that we now know as Africa doesn't make them African. And also one other thing is it's not coming from the Bible, it's coming from the Bible dictionary. And under Ham, it says, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. Now this is the key point. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So anybody who wants to try to say that the black race, they come from Ham, that's not true. That is not true. He was a progenitor of all the other dark races, just not the Hebrew Israelites.
Khazaria, which was greatly made up of the Turkish mixed people known as Khazars, converted to their national religion of Judaism, which was based on the Babylonian Talmud. He states in his book that the Khazar Empire, which in the Dark Ages became converted to Judaism, Khazaria was finally destroyed by Genghis Khan and his Mongol hordes, but evidence indicates that the Khazars themselves migrated to Poland and formed a Western Jewish community. They eventually migrated to other places like Germany and Russia.
Christian churches and the general public have been deceived. Many Jewish historians are now admitting that they are not the true Hebrews of the Bible. And how can they be returning to the land of Israel when they were never there to begin with? This is why Jamal Abdul Nasser, the former president of the United Arab Republic, said in 1956 that he could not respect the Jews because they left Israel black and came back white.
We are the Israelites. Us so-called black people are the subject of the Bible, and the Bible is the book that pertains to us.
Exactly, and it was knowing that we were the Israelites that helped guarantee our success in first century Rome. because the Israelites were given a specific way of life from their God, the God of Israel. And you find details of this way of life in the Bible, the book of the Israelites. The Israelites were the only people that were given this divine and royal way of life.
He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord.
And they were told that if they follow and embrace this way of life, it would guarantee them success.
If you listen to these commands of the Lord your God and carefully obey them, the Lord will make you the head and not the tail, and you will always have the upper hand. You must not turn away from any of the commands I am giving you today to follow after other gods and worship them. But if you refuse to listen to the Lord your God and do not obey all the commands and laws I am giving you today, all these curses will come and overwhelm you.
So that's why, many of our people were wealthy and prosperous in 1st century Rome.
Unfortunately, we've discontinued from our heritage as prophesied.
And thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee.
So as a result, we've forgotten the way of life that guarantees our success. Every race today has a biblical nationality. Their bloodline going back to one of the nations mentioned in the Bible. And the Israelite brothers have done the research to identify who the different nations are.
The children of Shem, Elam.
Elam, stop. That name was in the map earlier. Elam. Who's that? Let's real quick go to the book I want, page 86. I want moreover.
Of the petty princes who rallied, all were forced to rally round them. Moreover, the assimilation of the presumably indigenous Asiatics needed time, so that in addition to the complex of people of Elamitic Caspasian stock.
Right, so peoples of Elamite Caspian. Remember, I told you before, the Scythians were ancient Iranians, and they ruled, and they are part of Russia. Remember the Caspian Sea? So Elamite Caspian stock. These are ancient Persians, ancient Elamites. Go ahead.
Complex of peoples of Elamite Caspian stock already in occupation of the region.
Watch this.
The conjunction of Median, Scythian, and Cimmerian elements strongly affected the intellectual and artistic culture of the Medes.
Because these are all lived among themselves. They all intermingled, as I said before. See right there. See, Medes, Ecbatania, that's Medes. Achaemenid, Parsa, that's where the word Persia comes from. Parsa or Persis, Persian. See up top? This is Persians on the top.
Right, Persians in the where you go? Persians in the Parsa region.
Right, in the Parsa region, that's where the word Persian comes from. Or Iran. Go up. It says Medes and Persian, Iranian plateau. The Medes inhabited the north, Elam inhabited the south. Go to Genesis 10 again. Genesis 10 one more time. Genesis 10, verse 22.
The book of Genesis, chapter 10, verse 22.
Yeah.
The children of Shem, Elam, and Ashur.
So Elam is the Persians, Iranians, that's them. All right? Iranians, Persians, or Carmanians, that's them also. East Indians.
And Rebekah, his wife, conceived. She got pregnant. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. So if the Lord has blessed me, why am I having trouble in my womb with these child? Verse 23. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, meaning able to endure great hardships, able to exceed physically. And the elder shall serve the younger. So that part is prophetic for the kingdom. And the elder shall serve the younger. Verse 24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, her 9 months was due, behold, there were twins in her womb. Now we know that these twins were not identical. They were fraternal, meaning they didn't look alike, they didn't act alike, they didn't even have the same DNA. That's why here it says, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. So there are two manner, means two total different types of people. Okay? Different DNA, different mentally, spiritually, everything's different. So let's go back to where we was at, verse 24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb, fraternal. Verse 25. And the first came out red. What color does it say? Red. See that? See that little number there, 3, next to Edom? That is red. That's what Edom means. Red. So his name went from Esau to being called Edom. Now let's go over to Obadiah. All right, we are in the book of Obadiah. Behold, I have made thee, let's see it, let me get in focus, small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. See this part? Who shall bring me down to the ground? In order to say, that means who can conquer me. In order to say that, you must have what? Power. You must have power on your side to say nobody can challenge you, no one can conquer you. The white man has power. He has thermonuclear arsenal. He has satellites. When it comes to war, he got it. Verse 4. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, what's the symbol of the United States of America? I'm going to ask again. What is the symbol of the United States of America? The eagle. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars. In 1969, when they landed on the moon, what did they say? They said the eagle has landed.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The eagle has landed. The eagle has landed. The eagle has landed.
Why did they call themselves the eagle? Because they have exalted themselves as the eagle. And though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. When it says thence will I bring thee down, that's talking about the truth coming out. And they're being consumed by the word of God. Okay? Now the final outcome, you got to go to verse 18. Let's go over to verse 18. Let's read that. Let's talk about the kingdom. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph, that's northern kingdom, a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them. And there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken it. This is the final outcome for Esau, brothers and sisters. So while you're busy marrying them, you're having babies with them, y'all crazy as hell. You gonna die along with them. Okay, y'all twisting scriptures to try to save them. You cannot save them. It says, there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken it. Who spoke this thing? The Lord. You better get your spirits and your minds right and repent. Compact Bible Dictionary. If you don't have one, do yourself a favor and pick one up. All right, let's look up the word Idumea, and it reads, pertaining to Edom, Greek and Roman name for Edom. So when you read in the Bible about Idumeans or Idumea, it's referring to Edom, the Edomites, the children of Esau. That's all Caucasians. Now let's look up Edom, E-D-O-M. All right, let's look up Edom, Edomites. The definition, as you can see here, red. Why red? Because the blood shows through their skin. No matter if they get a tan, the blood shows through their skin. They are red. The nation and its people who are descendants of Esau. He founded the country, so his name is equated with Edom. The country was also called Seir, or Mount Seir, which was the name of the territory in which the Edomites lived. Now, let's go to the end of the definition. This is what I want you to see. Pay close attention. Edom figures prominently in the prophetic scriptures as the scene of great future judgments. See notably Isaiah 34, verse 5, chapter 6, no, what is that? Verse 6, then Isaiah 63, verse 1. She, talking about Edom, is the only neighbor of the Israelites who was not given any promise of mercy from God. The scholars know that Edom is the only neighbor of the Israelites who was not given any promise of mercy from God. You can read that in Obadiah verse 18 in the book of Obadiah. No mercy. Dr. William Smith's Dictionary of the Bible, comprising its antiquities, biography, geography, and natural history. Let's see, this is volume 3. This goes from M to R. When was this published? 1890. Look. Again, on verse 2, I have several times shown that from Edom proceeded the kings who reigned in Italy, and who built up Rome to be great among the nations and chief among the provinces. And in this way, Italy and Greece. Notice that from Edom, it calls them Edom here. Here it calls them Idumeans. This, I want y'all to see how these so-called scholars do. But we caught up to their game. Edom and Idumeans are the same people. And in this way, Italy and Greece and all the western provinces became filled with Idumeans. Thus it is that the prophets call the whole of that nation by the name of Edom. You see that? 38. So the third edition, let me go down. First edition was published February 1941. Second edition, April 1943. Third edition, which is what I have revised, September 1945. So I have the third edition. Where am I going to go? Hold on a second. Let me find the page. I'm going to go to page 17. Namely, only the highlighted part, namely that the Japanese are the children of Ammon. Can y'all read that? Let's go to page 28. All right, here we go. Highlighted part. I have a pamphlet of 40 pages by Sakana, dated 1906. It is the report of a lecture delivered at Exeter Hall, London on December 12, 1901, and deals with the arguments drawn from history and prophecy proving that China is Moab.
Sisters, notable ancient historians wrote about our people in 1st century Rome. Take a look at this.
And in this particular dictionary, I'm just going to read. It actually quotes from, this was translated back in the 1700s, and it quotes from the 5th history book of the Roman historian Tacitus. And what I find is interesting about the book of the Roman historian Tacitus, he lived around the 1st century. What's interesting about that particular book is that you will find there were a couple of people that did translations on it, and many of them are, translations people just, had actually added online, but you'll find the people who actually wrote books and actually translated it, there were a couple different translations that were done. I think one of the first ones was done in the 1800s, and then there were a few that followed. A couple of them, the translators deliberately mistranslated certain parts of the text, and the reason why they did that is because there were things that they decided to suppress, the information that they did not want the masses, people, to know. And that was what Tacitus actually said. And I mean, let's face it, they have a tendency to mistranslate history, anything regarding especially the history about our people. So there were some deliberate mistranslations here. So that's why when you read it, there's a lot of nonsense that was mentioned about us. I mean, it's without question that the historian Tacitus, he despised our people. But there is some useful information that I'd like to cover here that helps us to understand the history about our ancestors and how we lived in the world of antiquity. So I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but I'm just going to start right here. It says, Moses, the better to get their affection and fidelity, instituted and I'm not going to say religion, I'm going to say a way of life and ceremonies amongst so it says, Moses, the better to get their affection and fidelity, instituted I'm not going to say religion here, I'd rather say a way of life and ceremonies amongst them contrary to those of all other nations. And then it goes to say, for all that is holy amongst us is accounted profane by them, and all that is forbidden to us is lawful to them. So are you getting this here? So I'm just going to read that again. For all that is holy, this is what he's saying, that's holy among them, is accounted profane by us, our people, and all that is forbidden to us is lawful to them. Okay, and then I'm just going to read a little bit further down here. Now, here's something that's very interesting. It says here, regarding our way of life that they refer to as a religion. We didn't have a religion. We had, again, a way of life. It says, but what means sooner this way of life, they're referring to as a religion, but we didn't have religion, right, was introduced, 'tis certain that it is more ancient than any other religion. So he's acknowledging the fact that our way of life that he's referring to as a religion is the most ancient on the planet. Because remember, our people established the first monotheistic understanding of our Creator. That all, apparently that they all claim that, especially in Christianity, the religion that they follow derived from our way of life. But we know now, coming into understanding, that Christianity has nothing to do with our way of life. It has to do more with paganism. So then it goes on to say, these Hebrews never dwell nor eat with any men but those of their own people. He's saying own religion, but it's referring to our people. So in other words, our people, we didn't eat or dwell with any other people. We didn't hang out with any other people but our own people. That was our way of life, because that's what we were supposed to be doing as the Most High's people. That's what we were instructed to do. We did not associate ourselves with the Gentiles, the nations around us. And it says, and this is why the Romans despise us, as they still do today. And it goes on to say, and abstain from foreign women. So in other words, our brothers did not intermix. They didn't marry foreign women. That's why it says that. They abstained from foreign women. They did not marry foreigners. They didn't marry strange women. Only the women within our tribes, our own people. That's who our brothers married. Though they are much given to luxury. So when they're talking about luxury, they're just saying we are wealthy people. So I also wanted to mention there is another part of the, I wanted to read from this excerpt from the history book of Tacitus regarding our people that got removed, because like I said, some of the translations, depending on how old the translation was, some of the translations, there were certain parts of the text that got removed that they again suppressed because they just didn't want people to know. So you'll notice that this is mentioned in this particular excerpt that wasn't mentioned in the other book. So I want to cover this really quickly. It says, and other reasons for their increasing wealth may be found in their stubborn loyalty and ready benevolence towards brother Hebrews. So do you understand what it's referring to? Let's look at that word benevolence. So if we look up that word benevolence, it says, what does benevolence mean? The quality of being well-meaning kindness. It means goodwill, charity, altruism, compassion, philanthropy. And if we look at that word philanthropy, the word means the desire to promote the welfare of others, expressed especially by the generous donation of money to good causes. So in other words, very important to understand, one of the other things that kept our people wealthy within our own community, our own nation, was the fact that we only supported ourselves. We supported our fellow brothers and sisters. We supported our own businesses, our own commerce. We didn't go out and buy. If we bought food, we weren't going and buying food from Romans or Gentiles or Greeks. We were buying food from our own people. If we needed to purchase goods, we were purchasing goods from our own people. We supported our own businesses, and that's what kept the money in our community, in our families. And we were doing this in the ancient world. Now, obviously along the way, all of this has been forgotten. We've forgotten our way of life, and that's a problem. And so this is something, one of the many things, it's part of our initiatives and part of the requirements of our Creator that we have to get back to. We have got to go back to the way of life that our people were following long ago in the ancient world. All of the directives that our Creator gave us. It's not brain surgery. That's what kept us affluent and wealthy as a people, and it kept us prosperous.
Given to luxuries, sisters, means that our people were accustomed to the finer things of life, and they can afford them. They could afford them. Now, in ancient Rome, the Romans conquered many different lands, and from those conquered lands they imported many different goods.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were talking about, the finest silk, the highest quality wool, perfume oils, spices, wines, all manner of different herbs, all the best quality stuff, the products that basically increase your quality of life, So our people would have lived very comfortably, those who were living according to their way of life that was given to them by the Most High God. So that, those of us who were doing what we were called to do as Israelites, we did experience that level of prosperity.
They were doing what was pleasing in the sight of their God. What does the Bible say? What does it mean to do what's pleasing in the sight of the God of Israel? It means to be keeping his laws, statutes, and commandments.
If you listen to these commands of the Lord your God and carefully obey them, the Lord will make you the head and not the tail, and you will always have the upper hand. You must not turn away from any of the commands I am giving you today to follow after other gods and worship them.
Now, sisters, unfortunately, throughout our history, meaning the history of the Israelites, unfortunately, many of us have not behaved like the Israelites in first century Rome. You know, if you just take a look at the black community today, it's literally plagued with problems. And that's because, as I say, throughout the centuries, we have been very rebellious when it comes to keeping the laws, statutes and commandments that were given to us.
For these people are stubborn rebels who refuse to pay any attention to the Lord's instructions. They tell the prophet, "Shut up, we don't want any more of your reports." They say, "Don't tell us the truth, tell us nice things, tell us lies, forget all this gloom. We have heard more than enough about your Holy One of Israel. We are tired of listening to what he has to say." This is the reply of the Holy One of Israel. "Because you despise what I tell you and trust instead in oppression and lies, calamity will come upon you suddenly. It will be like a bulging wall that bursts and falls. In an instant it will collapse and come crashing down. You will be smashed like a piece of pottery, shattered so completely that there won't be a piece left that is big enough to carry coals from a fireplace or a little water from the well." The Sovereign Lord, the Holy One of Israel, says, "Only in returning to me and waiting for me will you be saved. In quietness and confidence is your strength."
Here we are today, and we don't even know that we're Israel. And that's because the Most High God of Israel just got so fed up with us, rebelling against his laws, that he said, "You know what, I'm actually going to cause you to discontinue from your heritage.
And thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee."
Sisters, understand that when you come to the New Testament in the Bible and you see the epistle written to the Romans, you can now understand that that letter is written to our people. It's written to Israelites living in Rome.
After these things Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth, and found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy, with his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Jews to depart from Rome.
The Apostle Paul was not writing to native Romans, to actual Caucasians. He was writing to our people. Just like now, today, I'm called British because I was born and raised in Britain, but by blood, by bloodline, I am an Israelite. All the letters of the New Testament are written to Israelites scattered throughout the ancient Greco-Roman Empire.
James, a servant of God, and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting.
That's why you see at the beginning of each of Paul's letters, he addresses his letters to the saints. Who are the saints? The Bible tells us the saints are those who made a covenant with God through sacrifice. Who made a covenant with God through sacrifice? The Israelites.
Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice.
This is why the Apostle Paul is always talking about the law of Moses, the law, because they were Israelites. The other nations never had the law. They wouldn't have had a clue what Paul was talking about if he was talking about the law.
Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. For ye are all one in Christ Jesus.
Now, sisters, one of the best movies to illustrate the kind of character that our ancestors would have had during antiquity when they were keeping their laws is the movie Ben-Hur. Now, Ben-Hur, the movie, centres around, the main character who is called Ben-Hur. And he is actually played by Charlton Heston. But Ben-Hur is actually a Jew, he's an Israelite, a so-called black man. So Charlton Heston is actually playing one of our brothers.
Absolutely. And in this story, in this movie, Ben-Hur, the Jew, lives in Israel. And at this time of the movie, Rome, Edom, have conquered and are occupying the land of Judea, land of Israel, much to the anger and chagrin of our people. Now, this is a spoiler alert for those who haven't seen this movie. But in this clip we're about to show you, you're going to see how Messala, the Roman, the Edomite, wants Ben-Hur, the Israelite, to betray his own people by telling Rome which Israelites in the land of Israel are against Roman occupation. Watch this. Let's see how Ben-Hur responds.
Did you think about what I said yesterday?
Yes. I've talked to a number of people already. Spoken against violence, against incidents. Most of the men I talk to agree with me.
Most. Not all.
No, not all.
Who does not agree?
Resentful, impatient.
Who are they? Yes, Judah. Who are they?
Would I retain your friendship if I became an informant?
To tell me the names of criminals is hardly informing.
They're not criminals, Messala. They're patriots.
Patriots?
Yes, like
Patriots! Judah, let me explain something to you. Something you may not know. The Emperor is watching us. At this moment, he watches the East. This is my great opportunity, Judah, and yours too. If I can bring order into Judea, I can have any post I want, and you'll rise with me, I promise. And do you know where it can end? Rome! Yes, perhaps at the side of Caesar himself. I mean it, I mean it. It can happen, and this is the moment, Judah, I swear, this is the time. The Emperor is watching us, judging us. All I need do is serve him. And all you need do is help me. Serve him.
You speak as if he were God.
He is God. The only God. He is power, real power on earth. Not that. Help me, Judah.
I would do anything for you, Messala, except betray my own people.
In the name of all the gods, Judah, what do the lives of a few Jews mean to you?
If I cannot persuade them, that does not mean I would help you murder them. Besides, you must understand this, Messala. I believe in the past of my people and in their future.
Future? You are a conquered people.
You may conquer the land. You may slaughter the people. But that is not the end. We will rise again.
You live on dead dreams. You live on the myths of the past. The glory of Solomon is gone. Do you think it will return? Joshua will not rise again to save you, nor David. There is only one reality in the world today. Look to the west, Judah. Don't be a fool. Look to Rome.
I would rather be a fool than a traitor or a killer.
I am a soldier.
Yes, who kills for Rome, and Rome is evil.
I warn you.
No! I warn you. Rome is an affront to God. Rome is strangling my people and my country, the whole earth. But not forever. I tell you, the day Rome falls, there will be a shout of freedom such as the world has never heard before.
Judah, either you help me or you oppose me. You have no other choice. You're either for me or against me.
If that is the choice, then I am against you.
Okay, sisters, so let's pull out some of the character traits that the character Ben-Hur demonstrated as someone who would be keeping the commandments.
Absolutely. One of the first ones being that he refused to betray his own people. And that goes with our law from the book of Leviticus, which says, "Thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself." In Israelite culture, our neighbour is always a fellow Israelite.
Thou shalt not avenge. nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people. But thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. I am the Lord.
Another character trait was that Ben-Hur believed in the past and the future of his people.
Absolutely. So when we talk about the past and the future of his people, Ben-Hur, the character, he believed what his ancestors had written in the scriptures about his people, how we were delivered from Egypt, how, you know, we were formed into a nation, how we had judges, how we had kings, the prophets, what they said, what they did, you know, and then of course the future of his people, prophecy, what's going to happen in the end times, you know. So that's a believer. You know, you can't call yourself a believer if you don't believe your ancestors and what they've written as regards to what they received from the Most High in terms of prophecy.
Absolutely. And that's why when Messala, the Roman, in that clip said to him, "Ha! You're a conquered people." You know, Ben-Hur was completely unmoved because he knew the prophecies. And when the word of the Most High goes out, it does not come back void.
And also because, like, he was practicing the Israelite lifestyle. So everything that, you know, his ancestors has written in terms of, okay, if you follow this way of life, this is going to be the successful outcome. He was living that successful life. So he knew that, you know, this was true. So, you know, he'd had the faith to actually embrace the Israelite lifestyle and culture, and it was working for him, you know?
Absolutely. And because it was working for him, he wasn't going to jeopardize that by being a traitor to his people. An Israelite is not a traitor. An Israelite keeps the commandments. You love your God, you love your people. Ben-Hur remained faithful to the commandments. So even when Messala was disparaging towards the God of Israel, Ben-Hur was completely unmoved.
It was completely unmoved. And Messala, you know, he was very disparaging. You know, for him to say, you know, look up to the sky and refer to the Most High God as, well, that, you mean you worship that? You need to be worshipping Rome. You know, it's very, very disparaging. And I think what is really sad is that many of our people can take on that same spirit that Messala had toward their own God. You know, you often hear our people say, you know, I don't need a sky daddy, I don't need a sky daddy, I know what's right and wrong, and things like that. And it's very unfortunate because this is their God. All the other nations have their own gods. This is the God of the Israelites. He's the most high God, he's the most powerful God. Everybody knows he's the most powerful God. All the other nations know it. He was made famous through what he did in Egypt in terms of delivering our people. There's this phenomenal history, wonderful future prophecies. So, you know, yeah.
Absolutely. Indeed, the other nations do have their own gods. You know, you heard Messala say in the clip, "In the name of all the gods of Rome, Judah," showing that he has many gods because the other nations are polytheistic, meaning they have more than one God. We, the Israelites, so-called black people, we have one God called the God of Israel.
Yeah, we're monotheistic.
We're monotheistic. The other nations are polytheistic. And you see that later on in this movie when Messala is hailing one of his gods. Watch this.
Hail Jupiter! Hail Jupiter! Hail Jupiter! Give me victory!
It's all about being faithful to our God sisters. You know, Messala referred to our history as myths of the past, right? He referred to it as myths of the past, but could recite in about 3 seconds 3 of our top men of renown.
Exactly.
You know, Solomon, Joshua, David. but I thought it was a myth. For you to be able to recite the names that quickly, you know, in quick succession like that, that means it's something you think about a lot, that's heavy on your mind, and you believe in. So it was really odd that he would call it a myth. I thought, yeah, very strange indeed. But again, you know, Ben-Hur, he wasn't shaken by this. The fact that Messala refers to his history as a myth didn't make him suddenly abandon everything he believed, abandon, you know, the prophecies of the future, and suddenly decide that, oh, you know, maybe it's not true. He didn't. This is what it is to be, you know, unshaken in your faith, and it's so admirable. And yeah, that's what we need to be like, you know. You stand on what you believe, and that's exactly what he did.
Absolutely. You know, the truth is always dropped in these movies. You always get truth in these movies, and what these old historical movies show you is that in ancient times, everyone knew who their gods were.
Yeah.
You know, and really, everyone knew their biblical nationality. And once you know your biblical nationality, you will know who your gods are.
You know, Ben-Hur's character really shows the kind of character that we should aim for as Israelites. I mean, he really exemplified that quiet and peaceable spirit. I mean, this is a movie, right? So there are some things he does that a commandment-keeping Israelite just wouldn't do. But for the most part, his character really was spot on. I mean, Messala put him through a lot. And it was a real test of faith for him. You could see that throughout the movie at times. But, you know, that's what some of the first century Israelites would have been like. Amazing people because of the commandments that were at work in their lives. And the movie shows that because of these commandments that were at work in his life, he was really blessed. I mean, in business, in family, in love. But, you know, those are the kinds of people that great movies are made of.
Now consider this, sisters. Consider this. In the so-called black community, there's often a Christian church on every street corner. The pastor preaching a prosperity doctrine known as prosperity, the prosperity gospel. But yet, our people remain poor out of all the other races. They remain poor at the bottom. Fragmented communities, gang violence. What's going on?
What's going on is that our people aren't doing what the first century Israelites were doing. The things that made the first century Israelites so wealthy. They were keeping their laws. So what are our people doing in these churches? Let's let a Cambridge historian tell us what our people are doing in these churches.
Simply walk into any church. In its architecture and design, you have just walked in to a Roman imperial palace. Sit down in that church and perhaps listen to the church service, listen to the liturgy, listen to the hymns. You are listening to Roman imperial court ceremonial. You are listening to Roman imperial court ceremonial. You are listening to Roman imperial court ceremonial. The structure of the buildings of the Christian church, its liturgy, its choirs, its priests, its bishops are imitative of Roman imperial court ceremonial.
So when the historian is saying to you Roman imperial court ceremonial, he's basically saying that you're doing Roman culture, not Israelite culture. He's saying when you go into the Christian church, you are doing Roman culture, not Israelite culture. So for instance, instead of celebrating Christmas, which was celebrated in ancient Rome and was known as Saturnalia, as an Israelite under the Holy Covenant, you should be keeping the Feast of Dedication, otherwise known as Hanukkah. That's our winter feast. That's a high holy day that's written in the Bible.
It's actually a high holy week.
High holy week, and Christ celebrated it.
It was now winter, and Jesus was in Jerusalem at the time of Hanukkah. He was at the temple walking through the section known as Solomon's Colonnade.
And sisters, other nations are now realising that what they were taught in Christianity simply isn't true.
My name is Jason DaCosta, and thank you for stopping by today. I am not a pastor, I'm not an apostle, I'm not a prophet, I'm not a teacher. Maybe I am a teacher. I probably won't ever author any more books, to be honest. I'm just a regular guy who enjoys regular things such as sports, eating, traveling, dogs, and watching large amounts of secular television. Those are my hobbies. My channel seeks to come to clarity and truth in a book that's been misunderstood by humanity for hundreds of years, and that book is the Bible. I didn't understand the law, number one. When I started to really understand the law and what Moses outlined at the beginning for just the people of Israel, nobody else, he outlined that this law was being entrusted to them and them alone. They were the only ones that had it. And he outlined that it would be a blessing or a curse to them. And it would be a curse to them if they didn't abide and obey with all their heart and all their mind and all their soul. They were to write it on their doorposts and on their gates. They were to bind it in the frontlets between their eyes. It was supposed to be everything to them. They were to speak of it when they woke. They were to speak of it when they lied down, when they walked by the way. So this law was of utmost importance to Yahweh, and he entrusted it to a very exclusive people. So once I understand that, and once I understand that the curse was tied directly to that, I started to realize that understanding the law is crucial to understanding the Bible. If you don't understand the law and the exclusivity of it, you're going to be thrust into a universal mindset of the curse, and that just doesn't work. I started to see things, and I would see that Jesus said he only came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I would see that Paul said that Jesus was born into the law to redeem those under that law. I realized that Paul said the fullness of the nations, or the Gentiles, the ones out in the nations, had to come in before that coming as well. And Paul said in that way, when the fullness of those in the nations came in, all Israel would be saved. So I started to wonder, gee, is Paul telling us that the ones in the nations are actually Israelites? It's very possible, because Jesus said he only came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And then many other things started to click, and I don't have enough time to get into it on this intro video, but that's what my channel seeks to explain in depth and in detail. I then understood Abraham's seed. That was never intended to be taken spiritually. It was always a designation given exclusively to the people of Israel and nobody further. So I wondered how and where in the story people changed that to now include all people. I saw the term sheep as being only given to Israel in the Old Testament, and the prophets saying that they had such bad shepherds all throughout this story. And then we get to the New Testament last days, where the gospel is going out to seek the sheep. His sheep would hear his voice and come. So I wondered, where did the term sheep change from Israelite to now include pagans? That didn't seem right. And I wondered why Jesus was called the Good Shepherd if all throughout the Old Testament only Israel had the bad shepherds. Wasn't he replacing that? Didn't Paul say he was born into the law for those under the law, and didn't only Israel have that law? So a lot of things started to develop, and I started to piece things together.
So that guy has got a really good understanding that the Bible is I-O, meaning Israel only. When you read in the Bible John 3:16, which says, for God so loved the world, that's actually the world of Israel that Christ died for. Because remember, Israel was guilty of breaking the covenant, breaking the laws. So Christ died for the world of Israel.
But Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. Ye shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end. World without end. World without end. The God of our fathers raised up Jesus, whom ye slew and hanged on a tree. Him hath God exalted with his right hand to be a prince and a saviour, for to give repentance to Israel, and forgiveness of sins.
So remember, sisters, when Tacitus, the 1st century historian, recorded that we, the Israelites, had tight-knit communities and were very wealthy because we married within our own race? Okay, so let's look at what a Bible scholar has also written about this topic of race mixing. So on the screen now is an excerpt from a Bible scholar's writings, Race Mixing. First paragraph. The church that has become a harlot has come to believe in what is termed the brotherhood of man. That is, they believe that race mixing is even desirable and that all races are the same in God's sight. This is the belief of humanism. Churches do this because the commandments, statutes and judgments have no place in their thinking. I'm going to jump down now to paragraph 4. But the real doctrine of separation has not changed one iota. Israelites are still commanded to be a separated and peculiar people in the New Testament. This is exactly what the harlot churches will not accept. I'm going to read the scripture that's directly underneath. Deuteronomy 13, 12 to 14. If thou shalt hear say in one of thy cities, which the Lord thy God hath given thee to dwell there, saying, certain men, the children of Belial, are gone out from among you, and have withdrawn the inhabitants of their city, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which ye have not known. Then shalt thou inquire and make search and ask diligently, and behold, if it be truth, and the thing certain, that such abomination is wrought among you. Next paragraph. Here is that word abomination again. The other gods are the gods of other peoples. This passage goes on how to deal with harlot, Belial churches by those Israelites who believe their God. Verse 15. Thou shalt surely smite the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, destroying it utterly, and all that is therein, and the cattle thereof, with the edge of the sword. And thou shalt gather all the spoil of it into the midst of the street thereof, and shalt burn with fire the city, and all the soil thereof, every whit, for the Lord thy God. There is no trace of it being acceptable to have fellowship with those with other gods. Is there hope for members of the harlot church? Ezra 10:10. And Ezra the priest stood up and said unto them, ye have transgressed and have taken strange wives, to increase the trespass of Israel. Now therefore, make confession unto the Lord God of your fathers, and do his pleasure, and separate yourselves from the people of the land, and from the strange wives. Again, the wives are Nokri, or foreigners. Not only that, in the demanded divorce, the mixed race children were included in the separation.
What always stuns me about these scholarly papers and historians, such as the historian in Cambridge University, the historian from Cambridge University, is they really have a good grasp of history and of what the Bible actually says. You know, this scholar was really very blunt in all the laws the Israelites have to keep.
Yeah, I mean, for him to show how the Bible is so strongly against Israelites interracially dating and marrying, you know, really helps us to see how much we have discontinued from our heritage. Again, you know, unlike the first century Israelites who were marrying their own people, and they were wealthy, and they were prosperous, and they had love for their people, you know, many of our people are race mixing, and the nation of Israel is predominantly poor.
The God of Israel judges races as a whole, weighing a nation in the balance. The Bible tells us that judgment first starts in the house of God. The house of God are the Israelites, so we were judged first.
But the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of God?
That's why we went into slavery, because we were judged first. Out of all the nations, we were judged first because we're the house of God.
Even though we are the ones the Most High sent into captivity among the other nations first, sisters, he didn't intend for them to treat us so severely. And this is recorded in Zechariah 1, verse 15.
But I am very angry with the other nations that enjoy peace and security. I was only a little angry with my people, but the nations punished them far beyond my intentions.
Always remember, sisters, there are 12 gates into the kingdom for the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. The Most High is loyal, and he has not forgotten his people. The book of Revelation describes these 12 gates. Take a listen.
And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel.
Remember, sisters, the kingdom of heaven is right here on earth, not up in the sky. Remember what Christ said, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth."
Sisters, those of us who repent by coming back to keeping our laws have a wonderful future ahead of us. Many so-called black people are waking up to who they are, just as was prophesied in the Bible, and they're returning to keeping their laws. The kingdom is coming, sisters. If you think we were blessed in 1st century Rome, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Sing, O daughter of Zion, shout aloud, O Israel. Be glad and rejoice with all your heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. For the Lord will remove his hand of judgment, and will disperse the armies of your enemy. And the Lord himself, the King of Israel, will live among you. At last your troubles will be over, and you will fear disaster no more. On that day the announcement to Jerusalem will be, "Cheer up, Zion, don't be afraid, for the Lord your God has arrived to live among you. He is a mighty Savior. He will rejoice over you with great gladness. With his love he will calm all your fears. He will exult over you by singing a happy song. I will gather you who mourn for the appointed festivals. You will be disgraced no more. And I will deal severely with all who have oppressed you. I will save the weak and helpless ones. I will bring together those who were chased away. I will give glory and renown to my former exiles who have been mocked and shamed. On that day I will gather you together and bring you home again. I will give you a good name, a name of distinction among all the nations of the earth. They will praise you as I restore your fortunes before their very eyes. I, the Lord, have spoken.
Sisters, we want to remind you about our book, Before We Become Extinct, How Do I Get the Confidence to Wear My Natural Woolly Hair? Remember, sisters, it's all about keeping our laws, and you can't do that while you're trying to assimilate. Because the very essence of keeping the laws, statutes and commandments is self-acceptance. And that's because the commandments are exclusive to us. Many of us have tried to assimilate into the dominant culture by changing our hair. And we've compromised our health, whether that be through wearing weaves or wigs or texturizing or relaxing our hair, when the scriptures tell us that we're made in the Most High's image.
Absolutely. The Bible describes the Most High and Christ as having hair like wool. They have the woolly hair.
Really, it's not worth it. It's not necessary. And why hurt yourself that way? Recent studies show that chemical relaxers can cause cancers in the body. Very recent studies. Sisters, you are far too precious for that. You're far too precious to the Most High.
And don't forget Ben-Hur, sisters, in the clips we've shown you. You can watch the whole movie in your own time, but you will see that he never tried to assimilate into Roman culture. He worshipped his God. He didn't try to dress like the Romans, didn't try to do their culture. He was very attached to his own culture. He accepted what he'd been given and he glorified and embraced it. The book will help you to overcome that need you have to assimilate. So what's in the book? It deals with rejection, messages we send out by our hair choices, damaged hair or alopecia, woolly hair at work, woolly hair and relationships. All these things have been areas that have made us anxious about returning to natural.
The book also has considerable information on nutrition and exercise. You know, we really want you to feel equipped to make that return journey to natural. The price of the book is £6.99 for the ebook and £9.99 for the paperback. Purchase links are in the description box. Sisters, that brings us to the end of this video. We really hope you've enjoyed the video. And I think one thing we really want you to take from this particular video is that, you know, even when under judgment, as we are, the Israelites are under judgment right now, judgment from the Most High. But even when under judgment, when we return to keep his laws, statutes and commandments, he does bless us, even under judgment. That's the love he has for Israel. So it's so important that we return and come back to keeping his laws, statutes and commandments.
Yeah, and remember, sister, there's a lot to learn in our return to our Israelite heritage. There's plenty of Israelites online, and if you go to our YouTube channel, we've got a whole playlist titled Great Israelite Teachings. So start there, and we'll see you on the road to Zion. Until next time, bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm just repenting for some sins that I may have forgot. Looking back on my life, I've made some mistakes that I'm surely not proud of. I used to be fake, had a new nickname every year, but some still call me Trey. Since I've been in this truth, you showed me the way, leading me right back to you. Father, forgive me. Father, forgive me for all of the wrong I've done. Father, please forgive me. Father, forgive me. Father, forgive me for all of the wrong I've done. Father, please forgive me. Father, forgive me. Father, forgive me. Father, your son down here in this world. Father, please forgive me. I'm just repenting for the things I did way back in the day. I was out in the streets and I thought I was the man, and you never took your eyes off me. You had a lot to say, so you slowed me down so I could see it your way. I was living in this world really wild, and I could have been stabbed into eternity. Father, forgive me. Father, forgive me for all of the wrong I've done. Father, please forgive me. Father, forgive me. Father, forgive me. Father, forgive me. I know I've been a sinner for all of the wrong I've done. I said I broke every one of your commandments. Father, forgive me. Father, have mercy on me. Father, forgive me. Today, Father, your son down here in this world. Father, have mercy. Please forgive me. Hey, I don't want to die and go to hell.
Remember this song on Judgment Day. I know I ain't been perfect in this earth. I feel short almost every day. But I never gave up.